What was the journey? Well, to get on Amazon and up and going, I think I just took a little bit of a different approach than most people when they were looking at Amazon as a potential sales channel. So my background is a chemist. So I spent 6 years at Pfizer making drugs for phase 1 and 2 clinical trials. And I loved the chemistry part about solving something that's never been solved before. You're making a molecule nobody's ever made before, using a pathway to get there. And so that was fantastic. The bad thing was I love people. And I'm at the back of the lab all by myself, right? You have a lab partner, yes, but they're a natural introvert, I should say. It's pretty much the case in the chemistry space. So loving the type of work, but not necessarily the environment for it. So I had the opportunity to, I got an MBA, jumped out of the lab, got a project management role at Perigo, and then just started taking crazy projects like the stuff that, would pop up. And so one of the things that popped up was a direct-to-consumer site. We had some overstock products, so why not try, e-commerce out? So we launched a direct-to-consumer site. We adapted it to B2B because, it's really hard to sell an, $8, $9, $10 bottle of OTC pharma and an individual unit and make money on it. I think as everybody would know, shipping costs kind of prohibitive. And then, you look at it, all the traffic, and all the traffic's on Amazon. And so I did actually a bunch of cold calling.
Wow.
Yeah, I cold called Amazon for about a month straight. It looked up any number, called anyway. I got a guy in a fulfillment center in the Midwest who's like, oh, I know a person. His name's Juan Medina, and he connected me. And Juan was the buyer at Amazon, was the vendor manager. Previously, he'd worked at Cardinal Health and instantly knew,
Wow.
like, whoa, wow, we've got a brand that can make absolutely everything because we are the largest OTC pharma manufacturer in the world. I can make anything, and I've got a label.
You're making molecules. You're inventing molecules.
Yeah. So we can now
By the
go
way,
do
when I
whatever.
hear people in our space complain that this stuff is hard, you're actually inventing molecules.
Yes. Yes. I know. So the whole thing is, what we're doing is very hard, but it then overlapped really quickly. What were most people doing? They're like, oh, what is going to be sales? How much paid media can I do? And let's throw ad dollars at it. And I was taking a step back. I was like, what are we doing? Who are we selling to? And let's put out basically the scientific method, right? Which is, hey, that scientific process is put out a hypothesis, create an experiment, control your variables. And if you can do that, you can actually start to get real feedback. So I was taking stuff I did at Pfizer with like a face-centered design of experiments and dropping in all the different variables and then doing a whole chunk of experiments on Amazon to figure out what really worked. And I think at the time, most people that were taking on Amazon, right, wrong, different, their background wasn't in science or engineering or anything like that. It was sales and marketing, which totally makes sense. But they would look at it and say, oh, well, the color purple on this image is wrong. I don't like it. It's aesthetically pleasing. People don't like it, but the algorithm would love it.
Yeah.
And so you started dialing it in, and you can then rinse and repeat over and over again. And we took some really interesting steps on how we were crafting content around Amazon. We hired a copywriter, a guy had retired from he was an editor at a local newspaper, and like, hey, do you want to come copyright for us? And it was in his spare time. He would just copyright, and we would give him the info you'd have to do. And then the next piece that was really important was trial and error and being okay with failing. And most people...
What year is this, roughly?
Oh, this is 2013, 2014-ish. Is
gotcha.
Right
so
where this
Amazon
Amazon
what you would have
thing
done
started.
back then was go get somebody who was a newspaper, a writer, basically to go do this stuff, right? That's kind of, back then, that's what you would do. It made sense.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd look at it and you'd see what happened. And then you started to get these really cool tools like Spencer over at, he was at One Click Retail at the time. Now he's got a company called Detail Page. But this new tech just started to come out. I just did it on my podcast with Danny Silverman, who was at Clavis. Like there's all these new tools that were coming out that people were afraid to try. And if you weren't like gigantic, right, then they were afraid to try. And then what they meant is they didn't have the data. And if you don't, we just see that now playing out. Data is a king. If you don't have the data to feed in, you cannot make the right decisions. Now, some people get lucky, right? But you can get lucky if you're a single brand startup. You can't just hope on luck if you're in corporate America, right? When you've got a number and a goal to hit. And so we were able to then just rinse and repeat the scientific process, try and paid media and AMG back in the time.
Yeah, sure.
AMG, man, that was
it.
Yeah, it's really funny because the old buyer, Jun Choi, he's at Xnerda now.
I
He was
know you. I just spoke with you, and he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah. Well, he was at Amazon and he was like, "Hey, trust me.
Yeah.
The data's there." I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Like, I trust you, but not Amazon. Like, I need more data or I can invest more." And so he would pull data here and there. And what's really funny now is he's over at Xnerda. They've got like the top AMC reporting tool. They've got a PPC tool and everything. And it's all the data through the marketing cloud I ever wanted. And so when he jumped over there,
By the
he
way, did
called
you
me up
happen to see
laughing.
his recent post? He talked about how Prime Day, awesome post. If you haven't seen it, I'll send it to you. Prime Day's over, right? And his post on LinkedIn was, now the work starts. For the brands that actually know what they're doing, now the real work starts, because you've basically waved people into your funnel. And now we're going to go, start having real conversations with them. Brilliant guy.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, and that's exactly it. What used to happen, right, is you would advertise for Prime Day, and it was all this lead up, and then you would just count the dollars afterwards. If you start counting the dollars afterwards and you give up on the follow up, you're right. You totally miss. You do get the one blip, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, Jin's awesome. Jin's
Yes.
awesome. I mean, that was it. Like, we just kept our heads down and loved what we did, and we did it different than anybody else. And then all of a sudden we had 2, and then 3, and then 4, then 5, and then we got just a ton of #1 bestsellers, and we're beating out the national brands. And their thought was, when I would chat with them, especially after I kicked off BWG Connect, is, they were feeding into like the drug that can be advertising. And so what they weren't looking at was conversion rate, and they weren't getting content first. So they would throw dollars, and everybody knows this now, like content, right, is awesome. Like, you have to have it dialed in. So they wouldn't have an optimized detail page. So they would drive traffic to it, and the conversion rate would be low. And so they would throw more traffic at it, which then you get in this downward spiral, because